So moving on now. AI, artificial intelligence. If you roll your eyes, it's here already. You could be, I mean, some of the biggest scams on the internet are, it looks like a proper bona fide person talking. It is that person. Look, it is their image. They're saying all sorts of stuff. But this is what AI is already starting to do, where they call it deep fake, and it's getting even worse. It is uncharted territory. Rishi Sunak has made a suggestion that it's Britain that leads the way in regulating AI. I was a little bit shocked at that, since the government department seemed to have such difficulty in accessing Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages. I mean, they managed to crack it now, but if it took them that long, you wonder how we're going to police AI. I digress. Lots of stuff about artificial intelligence. So the best thing to do is to actually cover that. Joining me now is Andrew Eborn, who's a barrister, broadcaster and futurist. I'm not quite sure what a futurist is.
I'll tell you what it is, Trisha. First, it's an absolute delight to join you. I've loved you for many, many years, and it's a thrill.
Thank you.
What we do, futurists, basically look at patterns in history, and I advise companies around the world about the threats and the opportunities of what's going to happen, including artificial intelligence. So I travel down to Cannes every year to talk about the future of entertainment, and that's exactly right in the centre of what's happening with the Hollywood strike at the moment.
Yeah. So explain. You might be able to explain to me. All right. So we're talking about deep fake and what have you, and with that, you know, they're talking, for people who don't know, a central part of the strike by actors is this AI thing, because I think isn't it buried in there somewhere. Stark example of what the big film studios are looking to do, which led to this strike. They're saying they gave them an AI proposal. They proposed that our background performers should be able to be scanned, get paid for 1 day's pay, and their company, not the actor, would own that scan, their image, their likeness, should be able to use it for the rest of eternity in any project they want, with zero consent and no compensation. So if that film company, let's say, wanted to make a porno movie, there's nothing that would stop them.
Well,
I mean, whoa!
Right, which is why it's so essential that people understand what is possible with the technology. Basically, you can take somebody's image and you can reproduce it in any background. You can also take their voice and so on and so forth. And that's what happened. So, for example, Bruce Willis, who sadly can no longer act because of aphasia, a particular physical conditions he's got, he actually licensed his image to a Russian telecom company for a campaign for zillions of dollars. And they did a deep fake, but worked out a commercial basis on which to do it. If you've seen the recent Indiana Jones movie, in that one, Harrison Ford was taken back in time. So rather than being a man in his 70s, his late 70s, he was put, for the first 25 minutes of the movie, he was only 35. And that was achieved
so how did they do
AI.
that? So when you say AI, I haven't seen that movie. Does it look like a cartoon, or it actually looks like you and me here on the screen?
It looks like the real thing. And what you would have seen, Trish, is if you had a look at things like the fake Pope, which did the rounds with him in a puffer jacket, and it fooled the internet. And basically, whilst the devil may wear Prada, the Pope prefers puffer. But it fooled the world into thinking that he was really doing that. And there was also collaborations. You had The Weeknd doing collaboration with Drake. You might remember, fantastic. Yes. Everybody thought that was real, but it was all done by AI.
And now they're talking about deep fake porn and deep fake girlfriends online. Now this freaked me out, because the ad for this, you can create your own AI girlfriend. It's so far girlfriend. It says, the ad, control it all the way you want to. That's the slogan for AI girlfriend app, Eva AI. Connect with a virtual AI partner who listens, responds, and appreciates you. Will act out all of your fantasies. Now, a lot of women's organisations are saying, and we know pornography is desensitising men, young men in particular. When you've got somebody, and people are falling in love with these AI people because they're gleaning information about you. It's like they really know you and what have you, and you can control them and have them say whatever you want to you in the porn way, women's organisations saying this is really dangerous. It's amplifying that whole control a woman thing.
Well, it's actually working for both, and yet you're absolutely right to emphasise what it can happen. And you might remember very recently there was Jaswant Chale, and he was basically the person who went into Windsor Castle with a crossbow. And part of his defence was that his AI girlfriend told him to do it. And so it is incredibly scary. What happens, there was a research which was done by the University of California, San Diego, which said that it's chatting to Chat GPT was better than chatting to your GP because it could show more empathy and give more accurate answers. So what's going to happen for the future, and it's not just a male thing, it will apply to the whole of humanity, is it can understand what ticks your boxes. And so it would work out developing a fantastic relationship, talk about empathy, talk about all the things that you love, and repeat that back at you. So people will be developing relationships.
Are you not scared of that? Because, again, companies, and that's something that's put up by these girlfriends or what have you, companies can insert advertising or subtle messages to literally, let's use the word brainwash you into buying a certain product or what have you. I'm just thinking here, things like gambling that I've covered before and things like that. Are we not worried about that? I mean...
Oh, you should absolutely be terrified about it, because what will happen is AI can push your buttons more than your mother or your children, because it will develop a relationship with you and know how to use that relationship for moulding that on that sort of basis. I mean, Stephen Hawking, he basically said that AI is the greatest human achievement, but also the biggest potential existential threat. So we need to look at that, need to look at the opportunities, but understand the technology. And you mentioned in your brilliant opening about Rishi Sunak and talking about AI and wanting us to be the hub. Well, I can tell you that the UK punches way above its weight in AI. And what happens is that we should do. I was at the AI conference very recently in London with Rishi Sunak when he was talking about these things. And I, as I say, talk around the world on this sort of basis where we can do this to contribute to the economy zillions of dollars. But we need to understand what happens, and you need to make sure there are safeguards in place to make sure that it doesn't take us over.
It is, because it is quite scary when you look about it. Now, so how can you tell? Here's the question. How can you tell, or how will you be able to tell, what's AI generated and what's real? I mean, it's not just with these, mannequins and these AI girlfriends and what have you, but with essays and what have you. I know when my kids were at university, already professors had ways of telling if somebody had sort of plagiarized something. But with AI writing things, how can you tell what's humanly generated and what's artificial intelligence generated?
They're very good. Well, there's actually software that does that, and there's a recent report in the press just today about a software called CopyLeaks. And it's looked at various exam responses from students, and it said, well, hang on, 95% certain this is generated by AI. What's going to happen for the future, and this is what I predict as a futurist, is we're going to have more of what people are saying, and Keir Starmer mentioned it, about oracy. Getting people to stand up and talk about things rather than writing them is a really good way to test them. So it's a brilliant skill that I think we've lost. I think the more means that we have of communicating, I always say, the less we're able to communicate. You look at people sitting in restaurants or on dates, they're all got their heads buried in their technology. They're swiping left, swiping right. It's a nightmare, isn't it?
Do you know what? Somebody said, when we look back at, like our relatives now, our elderly, our grandparents can show us photographs, and someone said, this is me with the inventor of the Hindenburg, this is me during the war, or your great-great-grandfather during the war, etc. They said, what are people of the future going to be looking at when you swipe left and right? Oh, this is what I had for breakfast on the 23rd of June.
You're so
this
right.
is a selfie of me. I mean, we're losing. I mean, we're joking about it, but we're losing hard copies of history, aren't we?
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
and what's happening now?
The Rosetta Stone, well, that wouldn't happen now, would it?
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And what's happening even worse than that, history is being rewritten. So the whole idea, we're drowning in a sea of information, most of which is false. We're living in a very diseased information world.
Oh, you want to come to, if you go on holiday to Florida, talk about rewritten, blimey.
Yeah.
I mean, I joke, but it's serious.
No, it's incredibly serious. I always say you must question everything. Always try and get peer-verified information. Get your sources from many different places so it doesn't just confirm your own prejudices. So what I love about your show is that you bring in different views so people can turn around and then make an informed decision.
Thank you.
All power to
That's
you.
what I try to do. Because echo chambers, if all you do is espouse your own view and only take calls and only have guests that have your own view, then it becomes reality. And it's not, I mean, I taught my kids, and I still do, read every single newspaper from the right wing to the super left wing to different countries to different faiths, interfaith, to rural news to city news. And it's like that story of the men who couldn't see and the elephant. Each one of them touched at a bit of an elephant and said, no, it's long and stringy because they had the tail. No, it's big and flappy because it had the ears. They all, when you read across, as you say, your brilliant suggestion, when you walk all the way around the elephant and touch all of the parts, you can say, all of this is true, but it's not just a stringy bit. It's not just the tail. So thank you for that. That's
oh, no, you're
absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, I said exactly the same to my children. You and I have the same sort of philosophy, which is what I love about it. But we're also hosting, so I present around the world. I'm hosting a very special programme for the Royal Television Society, where we're going to get both sides to understand, because it's jaw, not war. If you can understand the technology, then you've got a special way of making sure that you can embrace it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, look, going on, just talking again about AI, what, you know, if you regulate it, how? Because you talked around the world. How do you regulate it? Because if you regulate it in the UK, what does that mean in any other country? I mean...
and you're absolutely right. And when people talk about regulations, there's two things to it. One is about the getting the information in, and data is the new currency. I've always said to people, if you're not paying for a product, then you are the product. So you need to work out what happens about data. A fantastic series on Netflix and other channels are available called Black Mirror. And you might remember the wonderful thing, there's a program which I would recommend you go and see called Joan is Awful. And basically they sign up to a streaming service called Streambury, and they forget to read the terms and conditions, and all of a sudden they see their life being displayed on screen because they've given permission for people to access all of their data and that information. So there's two things that we need to look at. One is the input of that data, and that deals with things like copyright and artist rights and so on and so forth. And lots of people around the world are saying, well, hang about, you can't use my copyright to feed this machine because that's how it gets that information. And then the other is the output, about what happens with that information once it's in the machine. And we need to talk about regulation in a certain way, but we mustn't over-regulate. And that's the problem. If we have a fork, I can use a fork for eating spaghetti, or I can stab you in the back. What you don't do is stop production of the fork. What you do is look at the way that you control the behaviour.
But what about our information, just to finish up on our information? Because every time you allow cookies and what have you, every time you press it, there's a picture being built up of you somewhere and what have you. You know, you're talking about, say, we've talked about actors and what have you. What about the ordinary man or woman or child who unwittingly is allowing someone to build a profile of them? Do we have any coverage? Do we have any protection?
I would absolutely say it's essential that you do read things, because giving away information about yourself, that is going to be our most powerful currency. As I say, data is the new currency. And I help lots of people look at the rights that they've got. I'm working with the profession to work out ways that you can license things and so on and so forth, because just signing something away, there's a terrible warning for the future. So really, really exciting opportunities, but you have to tread incredibly carefully.
Oh, God, you made me feel really bad. Every time it says, do you want cookies? I just want to read the article. I press yes. I mean,
we all want cookies, don't we? But give me a clue and I'll help you out.
Yeah, we don't want to turn into cookie. There's somewhere out there, there's a cookie monster. I love talking with you. You must join us again.
I love coming on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So welcome. Andrew Eborn, barrister, broadcaster, and now I know what a futurologist is. Are you worried like me? I mean, am I the only one? You know, when they say accept cookies, do you actually read through all the small print, or do you just press OK? Because, as he said, someone somewhere is collecting all that information about you. Does it worry you, or you just think, ah, Big Brother's watching us already? Remember, London has more cameras in it than I think, no, second number of cameras next to Beijing. We're already being watched, but I don't know. Does it worry you? Am I being paranoid? 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk to 87222 or tweet at Talk TV.